The Concord was of the view, and in the case of Isaac Mwanza, that the idea of filing in of nominations and then one of the candidate dies, resigns, or withdraws, should trigger a fresh nomination. That judgment has changed the discourse of what should happen in a general election. And that judgment came after the 2021 elections. Now, what government does is that when there is case law, because case law can easily be overturned, you must codify it in the constitution. So in codifying it, you agree with the judgment or disagree using the legislatures. Now, with that kind of interpretation, it simply means we can have perpetual elections for the presidential candidate. What it means is that you can go for elections, then one of the candidates will withdraw at presidential level. It means you must hold elections within 90 days. The rest of the elections will go through. But do you know the danger? During that period, the president, for example, HH still remains president. Here is the danger. In that 90 days, when you go for nominations, another one can withdraw, meaning another 90 days. Because the judgment does not state how many times someone can withdraw. So that is a gap that needs to be cured as a mischief through legislation. Citizens do not know what they are playing with. That's why the president one time said, you can have a perpetual president, meaning it is not just the opposition that can withdraw. Even UPND, if they so wished, they can continue withdraw. Sponsor a candidate instead, they continue withdraw. President HH remain president. Then he caused a constitutional crisis. Do you know what that means? He has to reconvene the parliament. Not elected ones, but reconvene the National Assembly. Now, when parliament is reconvened and there is a threatened peace, the time for the next election will be at the mercy of the president agreeing with the Speaker of the National Assembly. These are the dangers that citizens need to be taught to avoid. So when we talk about the constitutional crisis, these are the issues that we need to deal with. Forget about the number of years for permanent secretaries, because you will not easily find a permanent secretary who has worked for 10 years. You're going to have a crisis there. You have no secretary to the cabinet. Because the trajectory in terms of administrative hierarchy have changed in government. A long time ago, permanent secretaries used to rise hierarchically. This time you can pick even a friend as permanent secretary. What that means is that it's difficult to find people that have risen hierarchically and they've remained in that position for 10 years. If you are going to get those who have served for 10 years, it means you are getting those that don't even believe in free education in the previous government. But that's not a problem. The problem is that if you want to avoid the previous government, you find the other person is using a walking stick. They are too old to serve. So these are things that must change with time. I thought we needed to speak in brief to the constitution making process in this manner. In 1991, when we had general elections, I amended the constitution. Actually, came up with the constitution. 1996, they amended the constitution and there were elections. In 2016, which constitution we are now using was amended, and that was an election year. So what that means is that as much as you can have people that are opposed, there is no process from the time we started making and amending constitutions that has gone with universal acceptance. There has been people that have been opposed to the process, but amendments have succeeded anyway. So it therefore goes that in every democracy, there will be people that will oppose and those that will agree. And that's how it works. Even in 2016, there are many people that were opposed to the process of amending the constitution. But we have the constitution. Now, what are the issues other than just saying this is a replica of Bill 10? In the first place, Bill 10 had about 79 clauses which needed to be amended. You are basically dealing with 13. In that Bill 10, one of them was they wanted, first of all, to allow ministers to remain in office up to the election time. That was in Bill 10. Number 2, they wanted to remove a clause within the preamble of the constitution which talks about Zambia being a multi-religious state. They wanted to remove multi-religion and put Christian. Understanding that we have this religion in diversity, we have Hindus and Muslims, it was going to be a direct attack on the Bill of Rights, which gives us this freedom of worship, that people should be forced by the supreme law of the land to live up to the dictates of Christianity. The next thing that came out in that document was that they wanted Parliament to be the one to determine how many MPs, I mean not MPs, but how many judges should sit at the Constitutional Court. Removing that mandate from the Constitution, which was prescribed, they wanted that particular power to be relegated to Parliament, and we were opposed. The other thing that they wanted to do, you know that the House of Chiefs chairmanship is rotational. They wanted to remove the clause that provides for a rotational kind of leadership and subject the representation in that House of Chiefs to an open election. We were opposed to the process. The other thing was that they wanted to abolish all the commissions that we have: Teaching Commission, Teaching Service Commission, Public Service Commission. Our argument was that those commissions play an oversight role through delegated legislation. We were opposed to the process. Under Article 8 of the Constitution of Zambia, where you find issues that relate to morals or morality, they wanted to insert the word Christian morality. And yet within the Christian circles, we don't have a collectively agreed upon definition of morality. For some churches, morality simply means dressing. Morality has to do, for some churches, they allow even polygamy. So that for us was going to be a recipe for anarchy. The other thing that they wanted to include, which was in Bill 10, was that the Constitution currently allows for a person who has retired from the civil service to remain or to be retained on the payroll up to such a time that they are paid their dues. They wanted to scrap off that, meaning we are going to go back, 10 years, over 10 years. And then that was going to mean when someone retires, they remain with nothing until such a time that they are paid. At that time, they had no deliberate policy such as partial withdrawal. Most importantly, they further, for many people that do not know, wanted to amend that alongside the Public Order Act by equipping the Public Order Act more. It was going to be more vicious, where more power was going to be central on the arresting officers to determine, or police officers to determine your rights to assemble and all these things. Now, all those things that I've talked about are not in Bill 7. So when you say Bill 7 and Bill 10 are the same, then that's total deception. Why are we feeling duty bound that this Bill 10 is different from Bill 7 and that Bill 7 must go through? Number one, it is statute bound that you need to delimitate in 10 years. Not every after 10 years, but in 10 years. Because the Constitution says not more than. In 10 years, you must do delimitation. The challenge we have is that you cannot conduct delimitation without amending the Constitution. Because the Constitution says there shall be 156 constituencies. So for you to change the number of constituencies, you need to amend that clause. That's the starting point. In the absence of this amendment, we will have violated the Constitution. So what will be the remedy? Because the Constitution will be violated. The second point is that there is case law already for statutory interpretation to the effect that the Concord was of the view, and in the case of Isaac Monza, that the idea of filing in of nominations and then one of the candidate dies, resigns, or withdraws, should trigger a fresh nomination.